Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is transfer deadline day and thankfully we have transfer expert journalist Ben Jacobs join us for a quick Manchester United deadline day update. Where are we at on all fronts? So Ben, first of all, thank you so much for making time to join us.
Pleasure. Good to be here as ever.
Yes, Manchester United, another win. We love to see it. And with that win in place, Ben, what is the current stance of Manchester United on deadline day? We only have hours remaining of the window. Do you think Manchester United will move in the market, or do you think this will be Manchester United just staying put with the squad they've got until the end of the season?
Yeah, I think like we said on previous shows, Manchester United's perspective was if they do nothing, that was always their plan. Ruben Amorim had a slightly different perspective, but Antoine Semenyo was about moving business forward. So if it's quiet, Manchester United can bill it as we're planning ahead to the summer, and that's where they're going to in particular do their midfield revamp. There were midfielders that out of opportunism they looked at, including Ruben Neves, too expensive, Wilfred and Didi alone with a 12 million euros buy option, but Besiktas, as Ajax found when they made a bid, were not prepared to sanction that. So it would have been harder than people think had they gone down that route. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is that Manchester United still have to be compliant with PSR as well, because in this season they're in a financial year with no European football. So it's all quiet on the Manchester United front predominantly. Obviously, we've seen a few of the younger players loaned out to various clubs. And there's a story I can tell you in a moment about Tyrell Malacia as well, almost going somewhere only for Jason Wilcox to veto it at the last minute. But generally speaking, Joshua Zirkzee expected to stay. Kobbie Mainoo not a factor now, even though it was under Ruben Amorim, because obviously at that point it was game time that was necessary for Mainoo and Napoli and alone, and now he's playing. So I think the 3 wins have sort of changed the course and the perspective a bit, because now there's momentum, Mainoo's playing, and as a result, Manchester United are happy to likely, barring any late surprises, wait until the summer.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that Malacia thing very, very shortly, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the midfield, just a tiny little bit further. And I wanted to ask you about Ugarte, because he had a little bit of interest from Ajax. Is that all quiet on his front in terms of he's going to be staying at Manchester United till the summer? And then do you think that there'll be any options there for him, or him being potentially moved on?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Manuel Ugarte, there's always a chance now that he departs, because Kobbie Mainoo is clearly, and perhaps always was, above him in the pecking order. Ajax tried, though, and Manchester United shut it down. So there has been interest in him. Lazio made a call, Leverkusen right at the end of last year. So plenty of people have been asking about Manuel Ugarte, and with Joshua Zirkzee, it's a similar story. Obviously, there was slightly more formal interest in Zirkzee, particularly from Roma, but Manchester United don't want to diminish their squad. They also are not yet clear whether Carrick is going to utilise certain squad players differently to Ruben Amorim. So I think it's about keeping strength in numbers, even if not everybody has proven integral or particularly consistent, particularly in the case of Manuel Ugarte. But naturally, if any midfielder was to have left the club, particularly a deeper lying one, it would have added urgency to find another one. And I think Man United still feel that there weren't that many midfield targets available. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was offered to them. They didn't want to proceed. Like I say, Neves was too expensive. They were never thinking about a player like N'Golo Kante, despite some people asking me about it. João Gomez, 40-50 million, and Wolves are happy to sell him in the summer if, as expected, they go down, because it's Strand Larsen that is likely to depart. So there's sort of a few moving pieces in all of this, which is why Manchester United, off the back of AFCON, decided to wait. Off the back of Amorim departing, decided to wait. They held direct meetings with Carrick, treating him like any other head coach, saying, what might you want? They looked at certain both incomings and departures, but stability now is maybe the approach they're taking, because Man United are winning games at the moment.
Well, I wanted to touch on that actually, Michael Carrick, because he said in his press conference before the game against Fulham, never say never about transfers and deadline day. In that conversation, do you think he wanted to bring a player in and there just wasn't market opportunity? I mean, what was his stance?
Yeah, I think Michael Carrick would have been happy with the squad being strengthened, but he understands from day one that he's not the permanent manager of the football club for the long run. Even if they keep winning, he might play himself into some kind of contention. So Carrick held recruitment meetings, and in those meetings, my understanding is they only looked at short-term options, older players, squad players, people with Premier League experience, midfield in particular, and had Joshua Zirkzee departed, they may have gone into the market and explored an attacker as well. But if you look at the names, whether it's Elliot Anderson in midfield, Jan Diomande as a wide player, none of them are really available now. So every deal that Man United have tried to initiate has either been a wait and then come back to it in the summer but lay the groundwork, which is what they tried for Carlos Baleba, or alternatively a player side because they know that the club are not going to sell now, or a short-termist deal, but it has to be cost-effective and the right kind of character. Because right now, Casemiro and Mainu is a great midfield partnership. So if another midfielder comes in on deadline day, they're not going to break that partnership. Bruno Fernandes is in a more advanced role, and Bumo and earlier in the season, Cunha are leading the line. The AFCON players are back as well. So as long as everyone stays fit, Manchester United may feel now there's not that many starters that they can get. And because they've got no European football and because they're not challenging on multiple fronts, there's not that many games to really utilise a big squad either. So Carrick's perspective was if you find the right target, he would take that target. And he was involved, I'm told, in some conversations with various players. And Solskjaer, by the way, was asked who he would bring in as well. And it's interesting because Solskjaer had Ndidi, for example, at Besiktas. But at the end of the day, this is about momentum. And Manchester United are winning. So they've got that momentum. And I think that will actually persuade Manchester United not to do anything rash, which is why in the end it's been an eventful window because Ruben Amorim departed, but a quiet one as far as incomings are concerned.
Yes, and I completely get all your points on that. And I get that side of it. Part of me, as we spoke on previous shows, is just like, what if Casemiro gets injured? Because I just think that would be a huge blow. But I'm hoping that doesn't happen and we can move through the season with him fit, ready and playing the way he is because he's doing fantastically. I want to touch on Tyrell Malacia, Ben, because you did just mention him. He was on my list of points to talk about because there was some rumours out there that Malacia was about to get a move away, but this was cancelled at the last minute by Jason Wilcox. Can you give us more details on that story?
Yeah, that's correct. So it was all agreed in principle and the club was Besiktas, and from what I understand, Malacia was packed and ready to board the plane and the club had organised his travel. So this was not just a near deal. This was an agreed in principle deal that was pulled at the last minute, I'm told, by Jason Wilcox. So Besiktas are really disappointed in this one, but Malacia was prepared to go. He'd verbally agreed personal terms. There was initially confidence of a full agreement and there was the framework, at least, of a verbal agreement. But then Jason Wilcox decided that it wasn't worth sanctioning. So that deal, unless we get any late surprises, is now dead.
I feel for the lad, to be honest with you, because I don't think he'll see much football at Manchester United this season. I understand Dorgu did get an injury, which kind of takes out one full-back option on the left back, but you've got Dalot who can play both sides, Mazraoui can play both sides, we're playing a back four now, so Luke Shaw plays there. I feel for him a little bit with that one in the move to Besiktas, but currently that is off. And then lastly, Ben, before I let you get back, because I know it's such a busy day for you, I just wanted to touch on Joshua Zirkzee a little bit. Is there anything behind his decision to stay? Was it a Manchester United call? Was it the player who decided he wanted to stay? Because all window long, there's been so many rumours about Joshua Zirkzee leaving Manchester United. I'm a little bit surprised it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think, again, Man United were never going to be accommodating to a player wanting to get minutes with a World Cup in mind if it leaves them short. And I think the challenge for Zirkzee was whilst Mbumo was away and Cunha, remember, had that kind of freak injury around Christmas, they needed him and he played a few games and he scored quite an important goal. So add all of that up. And he is at the moment a squad player for Manchester United. He has a good relationship, I'm told, from day one with Michael Carrick. And I'm told it was the club's decision to make it clear to the player, well, we're not going to sanction anything. For much of the month, Zirkzee wanted Roma, but there was an impasse, partially because Roma didn't want to pay 100% of the wage and only wanted to do a loan with a buy option. And also, again, because of AFCON, Man United were not going to sanction it and then find that they left themselves short. So Amorim liked Zirkzee as a squad player and thought he offered something different to the other forwards. Carrick feels the same way. And Manchester United have to be selfish here and say, we're keeping you. Because if Zirkzee departed, even though, yes, Chido Obi could come into the wider squad and have a pathway, Šeško's there and his form is improving, and Cunha and Mbumo can both lead the line. None of those profiles are exactly the same as Zirkzee, who can also, by the way, play anywhere across the front line. And maybe when you're chasing a game, you can be more direct through him, or maybe when you've got a lead, he can drop a bit deeper and press and win the ball back. So he's liked by Manchester United, and he's not going to get his move ahead of the World Cup. But there were lots of clubs interested. Roma were the main reported one, but PSV were also trying to do a loan at one point as well to offer him regular starts. And Manchester United, like with Kobbie Mainoo and Napoli, said, no, our number one priority, as you would expect, is the team, the squad, the ability to hopefully get Champions League football. And no player, even if they were an England international like Mainoo, was ever going to get a favour from Manchester United if it depleted the depth available. And the last point on this, which is very interesting, is even though Man United are not in the same position as the Champions League clubs, where January feels like the festive period, and due to those 2 extra Champions League games, the late January run-in is kind of congested. So everyone's a bit paranoid about sanctioning something. Like, look at Tottenham. They sold Brennan Johnson to Crystal Palace, and then within about a week, Mohamed Kudus was injured in the middle of January, and that's kind of backfired. And even though Man United are not quite in that situation, it's the same kind of thing. Fixtures are still quite thick and fast. Festive congestion hasn't entirely dissipated. So Manchester United, especially because they've now got a new head coach in, so that's a period of transition, they don't want to rock the boat. And that's why the expectation is that Zirkzee's going nowhere.
Thank you so much for all of that insight, Ben. I really do appreciate it. It does look like it's going to be a very quiet January window for Manchester United unless something turns on its head, which, we've seen it before, but it does feel like Manchester United that is it for the January transfer window. But let's see in the last remaining hours. But my last final thought with you before I let you get back is, do you expect a big summer from United?
Oh, a huge summer. I mean, I've said it so many times. Most people in the industry think the same. And if they can get Champions League football, and with the new squad cost ratio rules, they have a little bit more leeway, even though they would have to abide by financial fair play as well. So yeah, if you add up any 2 combinations of any of the several midfielders that they're linked with, it's probably an outlay of minimum 120 million. And in some cases up to 200 million. They're going to likely still add a fullback. It will now maybe just depend if the new manager and the recruitment team agree with Amorim that it's a left side predominant, because as I've said on shows before, Diogo Leon has a big reputation already and is very liked in terms of what they've seen in his development, which is ahead of schedule. So maybe it's going to be a very natural 2-sided fullback, or maybe they'll switch from left to right. And then still, I think at some point they will decide if they want another number 9 and potentially a left winger, because they've sort of done their 10s in theory, and Cunha wants to be a 10 and Mbumo wants to play centrally, but there might be room to do something on the left-hand side, which is where the links with Yann Diomande come from. So I think we can expect 2 elite, if they can get them, starting midfielders, a 6 and more of an engine room box-to-box midfielder, Mainoo to stay, and if it all goes according to plan, very likely full circle, sign a new deal, fullback, maybe a winger, possibly a 9. And if Chido Obi has a good 6 months and Benjamin Šeško gets going, even though Cunha and Mbumo are more experienced, age-wise, they might feel, can you actually add an older squad player that's going to be a striker and a dressing room influence that can alleviate the burden without necessarily wanting to start every single week? So it's going to be fascinating. And the only thing that clouds the summer is, until we know who the new manager is, that will have some kind of knock-on effect on recruitment. And the World Cup obviously will delay the market a little bit to hopefully give that new manager, whoever they may be, time to settle. So yes, big summer. Yes, big spending, even bigger if they get Champions League football, but maybe just a wait in terms of clarity to see what kind of manager they go for. And work is now starting on that process to replace Ruben Amorim in the long run.
Well, let's see where it all takes us, Ben. Thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Have a lovely rest of your day. And yeah, I can't wait to speak on the next one.
Speak soon. Look forward to it, and have a good deadline day, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was Ben Jacobs, everyone, speaking all things Manchester United deadline day. Very, very, very busy man on a day like today, transfer deadline day, because he covers all sorts of news, all sorts of football news as well. So for him to make time for us, that was very, very nice of him. I know it's probably not the news that everybody wanted. Like, I know a lot of people wanted to hear that we're going to make a last-ditch attempt to try and go and sign a midfielder, but Ben can't just make something up on the spot and say it's true when it's not happening. He can only go off the news. He's reporting the news. And the news is that Manchester United are not going to move for anyone, I think, in the remaining hours of this window, which is massively disappointing. I can feel your disappointment. If anybody tuned into my morning show, you would have seen that I am a big advocate of getting somebody in who can cover Casemiro for when Casemiro has a yellow card, for if Casemiro gets suspended, if God forbid he gets an injury. I'm a huge advocate of that because the drop-off is there. It's real. We've seen it. And I do worry what happens to this Manchester United side if anything happens to Casemiro. He's a crucial figure in this team because there's nobody that can do what he does. As good as an Mbeumo is, as good as Acuna is, as good as the forward players are, there is players who can pitch in. There's always an Ahmad, There's Acuna and Mbeumo are both good players, both good in different ways, but we've got cover across the front line. In the midfield, specifically as a holding midfielder, there is literally, we are down to the bare bones, and Casemiro is the only one who can anchor a midfield that we have, I feel like. So that is disappointing, but Manchester United have made their decision, and I hope we are not sat here at the end of the season saying, we told you so, we told you that we needed that. I really hope we're sat here, I truly do, at the end of the season saying, that was a big risk in January not going for a stopgap to cover Casemiro, but at the end of the day we got away with it. We're only playing one game a week. Carrick managed his minutes super well, and we're in the Champions League, and let's go and get Anderson, let's go and get the other midfielder that is top of our list. Let's go and spend on a left winger, on fullbacks like Ben just mentioned. I hope we are sat in that position, but it's a very, very nervy territory to be in, and honestly I'm just going to be watching every Manchester United game hoping and praying that Casemiro stays fit, but also that, he doesn't get suspended, that, we're not in a risky situation. I mean, we spoke about this on a morning show, so I don't want to go into it in too much detail again. But Casemiro coming off that pitch against Fulham was huge. It was huge, and I've said it before, it's not necessarily just purely down to Ugarte, it's down to the fact there is not a player in that team that can structure a midfield the way that he does. And it's going to happen again throughout this season, and it could be points dropped, and I just hope it's not. So, I mean, people talking about Lisandro Martinez, definitely, he could be an option to play in the midfield. But as I've said before, he's playing so well as a left-sided centre-back. It's not the ideal solution, is it? Like, do you think Man City are going to say, if Gonzalez or Rodri's out, both of them are out, then we're going to go and play Mark Gay in the midfield? They just wouldn't really do that. We've got Martinez can do a job, but you want him to play in his best position, which is as a centre-back. But I do envision if anything did happen, God forbid, to Casemiro, that could be an option that we use, because Martinez has proven before he can do that role. In terms of super chats that are coming in, we have Amit saying sign 2 strong midfielders is a non-negotiable next summer. We have Avi4090 saying, has there ever been a club in the Premier League so publicly against the January window as Manchester United? This while simultaneously making it stupidly obvious 6 months in advance who they'd like in the summer window. At the end of the day, United have ignored the January transfer window multiple times, but we've also made stopgap signings before that have had an impact on our season. We have done that, but we've also made a brilliant signing that has had an impact in our season. Bruno Fernandes is the best signing post-Fergie that was a January transfer. So you'd think you'd learn from that. I know if the market availability isn't there, it isn't there, but even, players like Sabitzer was a stopgap signing, but he added something for the team between the end of the season. It's not something that you'd expect from the likes of Manchester United. We want to be more ambitious, but Sabitzer had that effect. You can get players in that can just be a loan, that are sort of like, pull on the heartstrings of the fans for 6 months, but also add something to your squad that gets you over the line in certain areas. So we have done it before. We just do tend to be against doing a lot of business in the January window. We also have Notorious saying, I can't wait to hear what the huge update of the title of the video is referencing. Was scared the reports over the last month of us doing nothing is true. A lot of people think I'd avoid that kind of super chat. Look, Notorious, it is a news show. It is transfer deadline day. I tried to get Ben Jacobs on, who is very good in terms of transfers, because on transfer deadline day, it's great to have insight from a top journalist on what's going on at the football club. So it is, in my opinion, it is a huge update that Manchester United are going to be doing nothing, because it's coming from the horse's mouth, as in it's coming from a very reliable source that Manchester United are probably doing nothing. It's coming from a very reliable source that Jason Wilcox is intervened on a transfer for Tyrell Malacia, which in my opinion I think is pointless to keep him at the football club. He was about to board a plane to go to Zirkzee. To me, it is an update that Joshua Zirkzee is going to be staying, and he's staying because the club want him to stay, but also he's impressed with Michael Carrick and he's on board for the rest of the season. You know, I'm interested as a United fan in genuine insight from a journalist who is very good at his craft. Like, that's me personally, and I do this show as a fan, a United fan, and, you know, it's United fans predominantly watching this. If you don't like it, then don't watch it. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get riled up by that, because, you know, we can't just sit here on the show and make up that Manchester United are signing a midfielder this January. We can't just sit here and say, Man United are going to be signing a midfielder. Get ready, everyone. It's going to be a wild last few hours of the transfer window, because it's not true. We are going off the news. We've got a very reliable journalist on the show to tell you the news. If you don't like it, then that's fine. You're allowed to do that. You've had your opinion, but I'm also going to respond to it as well. So, yeah, I get the frustration. A lot of people are frustrated that we're going into the rest of this season walking a fine line between risk and reward, in terms of not spending that money, in terms of not getting that makeshift midfielder in that stopgap, and just hoping that Casemiro and Manu stay fit. I get it. But also, you know, you just can't make things up on a show, and you want genuine insight on days like this, which are huge in the football industry. So, yeah, I mean, that's your opinion, and that's fine. And I also thought the update on the summer signings is a really interesting one, because Ben's not just going to sit here and say you expect a huge summer, and everybody in the industry expects a huge summer from United, if there isn't a little bit, you know, of background on that. Yes, it could be coming out from the club, and they might be trying to send that message because they know that fans are disappointed they've not moved in January. But also, you do expect Manchester United to move big in the summer, and it puts expectation and pressure on them to have an impeccable summer. And what I will say is they've got a lot to do. They have got a lot to do, because they've got to get a new manager in situ, and that is an absolutely vital decision. The new manager in the summer has to be perfect. It has to be the perfect appointment. It has to be the right decision. It's a huge swinging doors moment for Manchester United. The transfer business has to be perfect, because you have Casemiro, who is crucially important, leaving the club, which we already know about. You have to replace him properly. You have to. You know, you need to get someone in who can partner Manu, because it seems like we're going to be building around him. And, you know, it's important to get that profile right. You need depth in the midfield. You need to sort out the Bruno Fernandes situation, because we don't know whether he's going to be staying or going. And he's Manchester United's most important player. He's huge. He's the captain of the club. There's multiple other areas of the pitch that need to be invested into. There's players you're going to need to move on. It's a huge, huge summer for Manchester United, and they've put a lot of expectation and pressure on themselves. Let's see if they can deliver or not. Get in the chat if you think they can. Andy Hale says, no signings in or out. Ben tells us that we are signing loads of class players in the next window. Come back to this when we miss out on Europe. I hope we don't miss out on Europe. I hope we don't. Keel Robinson says, no N Diddy. Yeah, I know, Keel, you were a big fan of N Diddy. And to be honest, as much as N Diddy definitely wasn't on my shortlist, and I do think it's actually slightly embarrassing for a club of Man United's stature to be begging for an Ndidi signing in the January window of where we're at, I would have taken him. Like, I would have taken him just for Casemiro cover, because he's got attributes that can help us. It's one of them. It's one of them, isn't it? But I just hope we can continue and still get Champions League football. But Carrick is, you know, he's got a big job in his hands, and we've just got to hope everybody stays fit. Red Devil Girl says, Manu missed 43 games since 23-24 due to injury. It's frustrating. It is frustrating that we've not gone and got that cover. I just hope Kobbie Mainoo can stay fit. When you're fit, you're firing, you're confident, it makes it a lot easier. But you see Dorgu, he's firing, he's confident, and these things do happen. We've just got to hope and pray it doesn't. Mason Mount can cover for Mainoo, he can, but even he gets a knock all the time. He's I think Mason Mount's a quality player, but he's completely unreliable, isn't he? So, yeah, we're on thin ice when it comes to the midfield. We are on thin ice. Amit says, sign 2 strong midfielders is a non-negotiable in the summer. Thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate it. Also, just a little bit on a stat I wanted to bring in. By the way, just to cover Tyrell Malacia for a second, because if you're just tuning in now, or if you're watching after we had that Ben Jacobs update earlier on in the show, that Tyrell Malacia had packed his bags, he's ready to go. Travel's organised for him to go to Besiktas in Turkey to go and complete his move to Besiktas, and Jason Wilcox completely cancels the move and vetoes it. I feel a bit sorry for him. I mean, I really do. Can we all be 100% honest here? Is Tyrell Malacia going to see a kick for Manchester United between now and the end of the season? Let's be honest. He's not. He's not going to, is he? Dalot can play left or right side. Mazraoui can play left or right side. Luke Shaw is starting left back, and touch wood, he stays fit, but he's been fit all season. He's played the most minutes for Manchester United. I just don't think he's going to get any minutes. I even think Lisandro Martinez could play left back, and then you could put Aiden Heaven in if worst came to worst. I just feel a bit sorry for him. He's worked super hard to get himself back fit. He's had, stumbling block after stumbling block with injuries. He looked out of his depth when he came back for Manchester United. It just didn't end up working out for him. And I feel for him because injuries basically stunted his Manchester United career. But you could have just let him go. Could have just let him get on with his move. I don't think that needed to be vetoed, to be honest with you, from Jason Wilcox, to be honest. I think he could have gone and played football. I do. But again, if Tyrell Malacia comes into the team and ends up turning into the next Patrice Evra, then I'll hold my hands up and say Jason Wilcox was absolutely cooking with that one. But I think Tyrell Malacia, it was the right time to part ways this January, to be honest with you, and wish him all the best. Just in terms of this stat I wanted to bring in before I rounded up the show. Benjamin Sesko's winner against Fulham was Manchester United's 44th goal of the Premier League season. They scored 44 goals in the entire Premier League season last year. The win over Fulham put United on 41 points, and yet United accumulated 42 points in the entire Premier League season last year. So we've already hit the total amount of goals we scored last year, and we're in January. Well, we're in February now, start of February, and we've already accumulated the same amount of points that we got out of the whole of last year, and we're in February. So Man United are on track for a much better season. It shows the recruitment in the summer was right. We actually brought in players who knew how to finish, and it's feeling positive right now with Michael Carrick as the manager. I do think he deserves some sort of backing, and Ben even gave us that intel that, of course, Michael Carrick probably would have liked the extra player, but he's not in a position to demand that, and he knew the score when he came in, which is sort of what we knew. So if Carrick continues and he gets Champions League football and he manages the squad well, then fair play to him, and it's a good improvement from last season. I mean, we only could improve, really. 15th in the Premier League is just absolutely ridiculous for a club of Manchester United, and we had to make that shift forward, and Champions League football would be huge for this club this year. It's a necessity, and let's hope we can still make it without making any January signings as well. Thank you everyone for getting your comments in, super appreciate it. Keel Robinson has said, one small saving grace, we haven't seen Amas, Malacia, Leon, Obi, Kone play under Carrick. The youth system is set up better for his system. Yeah, I think Carrick will start to maybe give Lacey a couple minutes here and there when the time is right, not force him in. We've got a lot of players back now, near enough everybody is fit apart from De Ligt and Dorgu. It's not that time when we had multiple injuries. We had Bruno out, we had Mainu out, we had Mount out, and Ahmad and Mbeumo was at AFCON, where you really wanted to bring some youth through to utilise them. When you've got a fully fit squad and Zirkzee staying, it's going to be more difficult for maybe the likes of a Shea Lacey to get minutes. But I do think there will be points in the season, if we are winning comfortably, where he'll get some time. And Carrick knows how important the academy is. He's already been to kind of watch academy games. He's spoken in interviews about the academy knowing they've got an opportunity, and he knows the club inside out. So you can expect Carrick to utilise that with the minimum amount of time he's got in charge, but it might be difficult with only having 14 Premier League games left and needing to win, the first priority being to win, and having a fully fit squad or a near enough fully fit squad of players who are senior players in them positions. But there is some exciting prospects for sure in the academy, there is. Last thing I wanted to bring in is what Wayne Rooney has said, and this is from BBC Sport. I think Michael's doing a really good job, and whatever anyone else says, if he continues with this form until the end of the season, then they have to give him the job. Wazza supporting his former teammate. He loves it. Have you seen Wazza in all of his interviews and on Match of the Day last week? It was either last week or the week before. He's just the biggest Michael Carrick supporter, and it's nice to see, them two sticking together. And look, like I said, I'm not rushing into anything with Michael Carrick. Let's have this conversation in 14 more Premier League games. But look, everyone, thank you very much for getting your comments in. I am extremely frustrated that we're going to be closing out this deadline day window without getting that cover for Casemiro. I hope it doesn't bite us. I really do. But we are powerless in this moment of time to do anything. I know a lot of fans had their voices heard yesterday, and you could see all the footage of that on our social media, and we played it in the show. This is where we're at, and Ben Jacobs can only come and give us the news. So good results on the pitch, good feelings in and around the squad. Just gutted that Carrick, after winning them 3 games and showing how important the midfield has been, that partnership with Casemiro and Mainu, hasn't managed to kind of convince the board that he needs a little bit of cover there. But let's hope he can make do for the rest of the season. I don't think we're going to see anything more from Manchester United in this deadline day. Thank you very much for all the positive comments and all the opinions that you've put into the show, on the morning show, on the afternoon show. Smash a like on the video if you've not already. Make sure you get your voices heard in the comments. Goldbridge will be back later, and also we will go live if there is any breaking Manchester United news throughout the day on deadline day. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you on the next one.